It's the 16th century. The borderland between England and Scotland is a wild and lawless place. Families hold the power here, not kings. Fortified manors, tower houses and bastles dot the landscape as bands of men make forays across the border to take livestock. Feuds are aplenty, as families must defend their name's honour and no insult can go unpunished. These are the days of the border reavers, and this is an old border reaver folktale known as the death of Parcy Reid. Today I'm in Redesdale in western Northumberland, not too far from Otterburn where the Scots dealt the English a devastating defeat in 1388. I've come to the farm of Troughend, which as you can see isn't too out of the ordinary, but there once stood an old hall here, the ruins of which were torn down in the 1950s. But on the site of the hall there was once a peel tower. This cattle shed now stands on the original site of this tower. It was acquired by the Reid family around the year 1415 and it served them well for centuries. At some point in the 16th century, one Percival Reid was a figure of great importance in the Redesdale Valley. He seemed to be a keeper of the district and a man of authority. Now while it is a shame that the tower at Troughend is long gone, I've decided to come here, the Black Middens Bastle house, and this is a fantastic example of a 16th century fortified house, the type that you would have seen littered all across the border. The fortification that once stood at Troughend probably wouldn't have been too dissimilar from what you see here in front of me. I suspect the Reid's tower would have been bigger than this Bastle, but here you can get an idea of how defensive structures worked on the borders. Families would live on the upper floors, and the ground floor would be used to store livestock for safety if there were known reavers operating in the area. A band of croziers had crossed the border from Liddesdale and were raiding Redesdale in Northumberland. They were burning farmhouses and store sheds, but the raid had not gone according to plan. One of their number, Winton Crozier, had fallen behind and he was captured by Parcy Reid. Now Parcy was a man of the law and wasn't going to allow this Scottish reaver to get off lightly. The Ballads says that he delivered the crozier to the law, and so he was likely hanged for his crimes. Of course, the rest of the croziers weren't all too happy about this. As Sir Walter Scott said, blood is thicker than water, so they made a plan to take revenge on Parcy Reid and his family. They planned not only to kill Parcy, but to destroy the Tower of Troughend and leave his land desolate. But they wouldn't do this alone. Parcy Reid had made plans to go hunting with 3 members of the Hall family, friends and neighbours from nearby Gersonfield. Little did he know, though, that these 3 men had formed a secret alliance with the croziers and were in on the plot to betray him. To the hunting, ho! Shouted Parcy, as he and the 3 Halls set off from Troughend and rode up the Redesdale Valley. This was good hunting ground, and they'd done well. As it approached late afternoon, the Halls suggested that they should stop and rest a while before heading back home. If you follow the A68 road through Northumberland, you'll get to Carter Bar. It's the famous border point between England and Scotland, and people like to get out of their cars and get their photos taken on either side of the stones. They have England on one side and Scotland on the other. The whole area is absolutely beautiful. I mean, just look around. I'm a short walk away from Carter Bar right now, at a place called Batinghope Burn, this river just next to me. And this is where Parcy Reid and the 3 Halls decided to stop and end the hunt for the day. You see, Parcy wasn't as young as the other men. He fancied a sleep for a couple of hours, so lying down on the grass, that's exactly what he did. But while he was sleeping, the 3 Halls decided to play their treacherous part of the deal with the croziers. When the Halls were sure that Reid was sleeping, they got up and did something incredibly cowardly. They stole his powder horn, they poured water from the burn into the barrel of his gun, they wedged his sword into its sheath so that it couldn't be drawn, and they stole the bridle from his horse so that he couldn't ride away. When the band of crozier men was seen galloping over the hill, the 3 Halls rose to their feet and woke Parcy, informing him of the danger. Parcy likewise rose and said, "If they be 5, there's 4 of us. Each of you men, take 1 each. 2 of them you can leave to me." We dare not stand with you, Parcy," said one of the Halls. "The croziers have a feud with you. We don't want to die." Parcy pleaded in turn with each man. He first turned to Johnny Hall and offered him his black nag if he joined him in this fight. but Johnny refused. He offered Willie Hall some of his oxen that he had back at Troughend, but Willie refused. Getting desperate, he turned to Tommy Hall and offered him his daughter Jean to be his wife if he fought with him, but Tommy refused. "Shame upon you, traitors all," screamed Parcy. "I wish your homes you may never see again." It became clear to Parcy that the Halls weren't going to assist him in this fight. He'd have to take on the Croziers by himself. But as he went for his weapons, he realised that they'd been sabotaged. It clicked. The Halls were in league with the Croziers. He had no means of escape and no means of fighting. He had no choice but to resign himself to his fate. Without time for Parcy to even utter a prayer, the Croziers surround him on horseback and close in for the kill. Parcy makes a heroic stand, using only his sheathed sword, and manages to knock one of the Scots to the ground. But the other 4 men deal him blow after blow, 33 in total. Parcy doesn't die, despite his many slash wounds, but his strength is gone and he can fight no more. The Croziers gave Parcy Reid a terrible end. They hacked off his hands and hacked off his feet and left him here, lying by the side of the burn. "The debt is paid, Parcy Reid," said one of the Croziers. They rode back to Liddesdale, and the treacherous Halls rode back home too. For hours, Parcy lay there in agony, mutilated and humiliated. Just as it was getting dark, a herdsman spotted the mangled man and recognised him as the Laird of Troughend. He took off his bonnet and used it as a cup, filling it with water from the burn to give to the dying man. "Thank you, my friend, but I must ask more of you," said Parcy. "You must bear tidings to Troughend, and bear likewise my last farewell. Farewell to my wedded wife, and to my brother John. Farewell to my daughter Jean, and to my 5 sons. Had they been here with me, I'd have lived to see the morn." Before the shepherd left, Parcy told him of one last thing: the treachery of the Halls. And so Parcy passed away. When his family found him, they placed his hands and feet in a pillowcase to carry back home to be buried with his body. The Halls were driven from their home at Gersonfield, and some say they fled the country. In local tradition, Parcy Reid's ghost is said to have haunted Reidsdale for many years, and, as John Lang wrote in his 1916 Stories of the Border Marches, at times he would come gallantly cantering across the moorland as he had done when blood ran warm in his veins. And yet, again, he would come as a fluttering, homeless soul, whimpering and formless, with a moaning cry for justice, justice, judgment, on him who had by black treachery hurried him unprepared to his end. The story of Parcy Reid has little historical record to back it up, but it was a tale that was passed down for generations on the border, and so there's almost certainly some truth to it. There is a record of a Parcy Reid existing though, mentioned in the Calendar of Border Papers dated 1584, and then 6 years later in a Middlemarch bill from 1590. Could this be the same man from our story, or is it a descendant with the same name? We'll never know, but next time you pass Batinghope at dusk while driving between England and Scotland, look out for a lonely ghost still seeking vengeance.